Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 214 of At Odds with Wrestling. Joe and Adam here. Adam, hello. How are you?
I'm doing good, Joe, but I hear we have to start things off with an apology tour from you.
Well, I was going to say, I was hoping that you would start with your apology tour of trying to bully Todd into buying a useless prototype.
All right, first of all, everybody knows the prototypes aren't useless, and we'll get into that during weekly purchases.
Okay. So it's more of a corrections sort of thing, right? Last week, prompted by one of the calls, a friend of the show, longtime friend of mine, Tom Green, called in, and he just kind of like poked me with a stick in regards to the whole IWTV FITE Plus deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I said all the stuff that I knew, the stuff that I was told by multiple sources. And it was one of those things that, like, I couldn't vet during the show because we were doing the show. And there's been times where I'm like, oh, I'm going to text Jerry right now, or I'm going to text Mantis right now, or I'm going to text this one right now. And they never get back to me, right? Especially when we're doing the show.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, when all this stuff was going on earlier in the week, I did text Jerry, and he did not reply to me. But it wasn't like me in an official capacity of someone on the podcast saying, like, well, this is going to come up on the podcast this week. I want an official statement from you, you know?
Yeah, you didn't have the hat with the little, like, sign that says press on the top.
Yeah, mine says pull, actually, but either way. So then Friday morning, Tom goes and, like, signal boosts it. Bunch of other people signal boost it. Then I'm getting messages in my DMs from people. And it's like, oh, where's the time code on it? So now I got to go pull the time code. Like, we got a bunch of people. It's like, hey, we've been doing this show for like 215 episodes or whatever the hell it is. And I have like friends of mine like, oh, you do a wrestling podcast? And I'm like, oh, thanks, pal.
Well, that's on you.
That is on me. So I did get texts from Jerry. I was going to say an unnamed person at IWTV, but who the fuck we kidding, right? So just to clear things up, okay? No one who streams their shows on IWTV gets paid below 10 cents, okay? Everyone gets paid the same, 30 cents an hour, plus bonuses for hours watched in a specific month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, that's VOD. If it's live, it's a little bit more than 30 cents. He didn't say how much. Now, where there was a little unclarity in regards to how some people were coming to me and saying they were only getting like 10 cents and 7 cents. Out of their thing is Jerry did mention if you hire the IWTV Smart Mark crew to do production and then you don't pay them up front, then they take that out of whatever your thing is for the month, right?
Makes sense.
And then there are different milestones. He didn't tell me what those milestones were, but that's ways that you can get above that 30 cents for the month and et cetera, right? Mm-hmm. Also, we had mentioned on the show last week in regards to Circle 6, who had a banner week of publicity, their fancy catering that they have, and just because you were the fourth man in a 4-person squash on an episode of AEW Dark with the Big Show, nobody could tell you shit about the wrestling business. I could tell you that you look like shit and you're a coward and you covered up your straight edge tattoos for some reason, but that's neither here nor there. So I mentioned to Jerry, he had heard the thing about me saying that Circle 6 is going on FITE, okay? Apparently, and again, I don't know how this works, apparently there's a difference between FITE and FITE Plus. Apparently they're two different companies, even though when I go to FITE.com, it says, do you want to sign up for FITE Plus? I don't know. But Jerry assured me that Circle 6 is not going to be on FITE Plus. But when I go to Circle 6's social media and FITE.com, they have a show on the schedule for 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, I'm very... it's just because I'm an old... Like, I thought that's what it was. Like, I'm very confused by FITE versus FITE Plus,
Right, and that's... The way that Jerry was texting me was he made it seem like it's two separate companies. I don't understand how that makes any sense, but apparently... I'm getting that all out of the way. Still, this was the week where a bunch more people made the announcements that they were going, whether they were leaving IWTV and going to FITE Plus for the $5 a month, GCW making the official announcement that they're part of the $5 a month thing for all their shows and their back catalog, which we'll get to momentarily. But then there were a bunch of people that came forward and said, hey, we're sticking with IWTV. We like the deal that we have. And, I say definitely support them. Obviously $5 a month to get some of the higher end guys, $9 a month to get everyone else. If you don't like WWE, you don't like AEW, you like the indies, and again, I don't know my gazintas, you pay for a year, it's cheaper, but that's $14 a month to get pretty much every show. Now, I'll say this for both companies, FITE Plus and IWTV, they really need to stop streaming multiple shows head-to-head against each other. Like when you go on to Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium and at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on a Friday night, I shouldn't have to choose between 3 different shows because now you're fucking those other 2 companies, right?
But isn't that really just the fault of not really the fault, but there's only so many days a week that wrestling runs. Everybody runs on Friday nights or Saturday nights or Saturday afternoons. And
right.
It's not like, oh, hey, fucking AIW, we need you to run on a Tuesday because GCW's on a Friday.
You guys all need to work together to figure that shit out.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, then this is gonna be a bust, right? So GCW, some people were tooling around, including myself, around the FITE Plus side of things to see what was up there from the past catalog of GCW. There's only one show up there that I have commentary on. If more shows that I did commentary on, there might be a funny joke I do on social media. Yucca yucca. But that being said, there's like other shows that are on there that I'm not really sure how they get to be part of GCW's library. Like, remember the infamous like Mania weekend of the White Eagle Hall?
Oh yeah.
So like every show that ran that weekend is part of GCW on FITE Plus, and that includes the Chikara show that ran. That includes the IWTV family reunion show. That includes the Blackcraft show. They're part of GCW's back catalog on FITE Plus. I'm not really sure how that works. Hopefully everyone who tuned in from last week to this week hears that, and I don't know, does something about it,
And that's the weekend that had the Orange Cassidy show, too.
Yeah,
right?
And the Orange Cassidy show is up under the GCW banner, and I get that. Like, that was more or less a show that Brett took over when it got found out that Mike King, who runs Nova Pro, was a piece of trash. Even though there might have been at least one person on that show that I had to go and fight for months to get them paid for that show. But that's neither here nor there. That's on them. They should be able to fight for themselves, but never let it be said I don't fight for the little guy or the big guy. But I think that covers everything. I don't think I've dug any new holes for myself, have I?
I'm not the one to ask, but I'm sure somebody will correct you.
Okay. So if anyone comes and asks for information, you just tell them it's right at the beginning of the show.
There you go. Timestamp 00.
There you go. So let's get into the real meat of the show, huh?
All right.
And now, At Odds with Wrestling presents This Day in Wrestling History.
Hey, this day in wrestling history, it's a light one, but we're going to get into it. I could stretch these things out forever,
No, I think we're going to have a nice short show today, so.
Well, listen, as long as we're under 3, I think that's all that matters, Yep. So, this day in wrestling history in 1990. If you remember from a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, where they did the deal with DiBiase, Dusty, and Dustin Rhodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where DiBiase comes in, buys the entire row, when Dusty is fighting Macho Man in an episode of Saturday Night's Main Event. They start beating up Dustin, causes Dusty to get distracted, and so forth. So it led to a match on an episode of Superstars that happened, 32 years ago today, where Dustin Rhodes, who as far as we knew was just a fan, obviously we didn't know as a WWE watcher, all he had to do was last 10 minutes with Ted DiBiase, right?
Yep.
That match is up, that entire segment. It's a match, but it's like an opening, middle, end thing. That entire thing is up on, YouTube, specifically on Friend of the Show Monsoon Classics YouTube page. Very similar to that match that Jericho had in the early days of Dynamite with Jungle Boy, where it was like Jungle Boy didn't have to win, he just had to last the time of the match.
Okay.
If you remember that match from a couple years ago on IWTV, this match is what inspired that match.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Which one is DiBiase and which one's Jungle Boy in that?
Jericho is Debussy, and Jungle Boy is the natural Dustin Rhodes.
I realized that was a stupid question after I asked it, because obviously one of them is the one who has the last. I was just drawing comparisons to content of character,
For sure. So the only other thing on this day in wrestling history is the head-to-head Raw and Nitro in 1997. So it's interesting to see where kind of things go here. Both shows are running in the Pennsylvania area. Nitro's in Philly at the Spectrum. Raw is in Hershey at the Hershey Park Arena, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nitro, somebody joked online and said that this episode of Nitro from 1997 had more of the 1996 ECW roster than 1997 ECW did. Some of the notable things on the show is Saturn beating Disco Inferno for the TV title.
Okay.
I remember that being a really good match. This is Chris Jericho getting a fluke win over Scott Hall. Now, we had not been mentioning it, but for weeks on Nitro, Scott Hall had been intimidating referees, bullying referees, and Larry Zbyszko was the only one that was standing up for them. This was Jericho, getting that advantage, getting the distraction from Larry Zbyszko, getting the fluke win on Scott Hall that everyone is like, oh man, Scott Hall, big deal. Jericho was relatively new in the company. This win did nothing for Jericho, and it's still disputed to this day whether it did or did not.
And this is still before his cruiserweight run.
Yeah, we're still at least another 2 months away from that happening.
Okay.
So also on this show, no Hogan, no Bischoff, but Bischoff calls in because the previous week on Raw, to hype up a Survivor Series special that was going to air on the USA Network, Vince says that one of the matches that was going to be on there was Undertaker versus Hulk Hogan from the 1991 Survivor Series, and Vince says, get a chance to see Hogan in his prime, not like he is today. So that puts a burr under the saddle of Eric Bischoff, and Eric Bischoff calls in to run Vince down for that, and says that next week on Nitro, he's going to have a big surprise.
Oh.
Now,
also, I just say, who knew, back then that Bischoff might have been the more decent person out of the two, Bischoff versus McMahon.
Nah, I'd say it's a split 'em,
I'd say 60-40 of Vince being more of a scumbag.
I say it's 49-51, but okay. Now over on Monday Night Raw. Again, Bischoff says next week on Nitro he's going to have a big surprise. Over on Monday Night Raw, the go-home show for Survivor Series. Two of the big matches on Survivor Series is going to be Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on Owen Hart for the Intercontinental title. Mm-hmm. And for the World Wrestling Entertainment title, Shawn Michaels versus Bret the Hitman Hart.
All right.
Again, this is the go-home show for Survivor Series. Bret's not on the show. Owen's not on the show. Stone Cold's not on the show.
You know who was on the show? Shawn Michaels. Someone who always shows up.
Shawn Michaels was on the show. Now,
not phoning it in like Bret.
Right. We do get the debut of Steve Blackman on this show. Steve Blackman is a fan who jumps out of the crowd to beat up the Hart Foundation.
Okay. Living everybody's dream.
And then he's just part of the Survivor Series team this Sunday.
Gotcha. And isn't this the Monday Night Raw where DX is, they have the windshield wipers on their masks against Slaughter?
Yep, for sure. This is one of your favorite moments in Monday Night Raw history.
It is.
But again, such a weird thing. Like, it's the go-home show for a pay-per-view, and, like, three of the four principals in your two marquee matchups are just not on the show.
Yeah. Well, like I said, as long as they have Shawn Michaels, they were able to sell tickets.
Mm-hmm.
And pay-per-view buys.
Yeah, it sure is. We'll see how all that pans out. I'm sure nothing happens on next week's Nitros and Raw that we would have a lot to talk about, right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, again, get ready for a 4-hour show next week, maybe. But that's it. That's all I got for this day in wrestling history.
All right, nice short segment. I like it. Sorry, whoever is out there that loves this day in history. You know,
it wasn't a lot. You know, I threw the Dustin Debussy thing in at the last minute. You know.
Yeah, just padding it out unnecessarily. I see.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, I guess we'll get into this week's discussion then, right?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to just start things off really lightly, and I'm going to say that, Joe, we have a conspiracy on our hands. I might even say it's a major conspiracy, because I was watching Ed Cody's favorite wrestling show last week, Impact.
Oh, I thought you were going to say sleazy, handheld Japanese indie.
No, not his old favorite thing, his new favorite thing. And as everybody should do, I was fast-forwarding to get to the major players segment, and I saw something that shocked me to the core, Joe. Shocked me. And that is the fact that Broski, Matthew Cardona, is wearing a purple leather jacket again. And then I turn on NWA TV. That's a lie. I saw still photos. And he's wearing it again. I bought that jacket, Joe. What happened? Did he buy another one? Does he have a closet full of them? Is he like Todd, where he just has like one outfit and he just wears multiples? Like, did he find more in the garage or under the couch cushion? Did I get worked, Joe? I feel like I want answers about this. I honestly don't even know where to go from here.
I don't remember. Is the purple one that you bought got fleeced for? Does that have like studs on it? Like it has spikes on the shoulders and stuff, or no?
No. That was his like super FE one. That was kind of more pinkish.
Okay.
This one, as Alex Shelley pointed out on Impact, is more of a plum.
Oh, okay. Not an amethyst color?
No, I don't even know what that is.
My first car was amethyst color.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, listen, it was a showroom. It was a year-old showroom that had 12 miles on it. I got a nice deal on it. Anyway, yeah, you absolutely got worked. If you make any transaction directly with Broski, you are the mark that he so lovingly, wink, talks about. You know.
I'm beginning to think I shouldn't have bought all those those loose Funko Pops from him for $1,000 this week either.
I think what you need to do is you need to go on the Whatnot stream and buy him signing random unaffiliated Funko Pops.
Oh, okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's going to show him, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, I just figured that's obviously the top story coming out of this week, that, like, who knows what's true anymore? You know,
sure.
You can't trust anybody.
Right. Speaking of not being able to trust anyone, my top story was in a backstage segment. LA Knight was prepared to make the correction that we all know needs to be made from his SmackDown debut as LA Knight, where the ring announcer said that he's from Hagersville, Maryland, which does not exist. He was interrupted by that no good crumb bum Ricochet. Now, I'm torn whether or not I want them to acknowledge that the Hollywood multi-million-dollar megastar hails from the crap town of Hagerstown, Maryland, or that it becomes a bit that they keep getting it wrong and he never gets a chance to correct them. I'm not really sure where I am with that, but I really just hope it continues to be a thing. World Wrestling Entertainment writing staff, I got a 13-week treatment. If you're interested, drop me a line.
Joe, how long are we going to, let's just keep saying, I'm not going to say bit, but how long do you think your love of Mr. Hagerstown is going to last?
TBD. How about that?
Yeah.
Listen, I may have someone going to do some reconnaissance work in Hagerstown, Maryland in about 2 weeks. So
Okay, man on the streets.
Gonna beat the feet. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Joe. Speaking of doing reconnaissance work, you did some in-depth analysis last week. Maybe had a couple omissions, some oversights of the IWTV / FITE Plus situation. So I took it upon myself to do a journalism of my own.
Oh.
And it's into something that I know a lot of people have been talking about, and that is the world of wrestling OnlyFans accounts.
Okay.
So the first question is, in regards to the WWE, in the past, you know how they've always like tried to shut down Twitch streams and like YouTube shows and outside projects. So the first thing that came to my mind is, how do they feel, like where do they fall regarding OnlyFans accounts? Like you would think that that would be the first thing that they would shut down. So there was a lot of rumors last week, and who knows what happens tomorrow or in the coming weeks. But there was rumors that poor Chelsea Green, was going to be returning to the WWE. So I did a journalism, and I looked into see if her OnlyFans was still up. I did not subscribe, but her OnlyFans was updated as of November 1st. So 2 days ago, as of this recording, she still is contributing to her OnlyFans. So has she signed, or then do they not care anymore? So that led me to think, okay, she's just a rumor. Let's look into somebody else who has a similar site and has actually signed. So I looked into Emma, a.k.a. Tennille Dashwood. And she doesn't have an OnlyFans, but she has like a thing called Brand Army, which is like the same thing as OnlyFans, but it just doesn't have the connotations that OnlyFans does, which I think might. Whatever. So she signed who knows when, and she was on SmackDown this past Friday, the 28th of October. As of November 3rd, today, she is still uploading content to the Brand Army website. So, what I want to know, maybe Bix can get on this, because I feel like somebody needs to dig deeper, is, are they allowed to post that content? Because it's not technically porn. They're only doing, like, bikini things. Or is it something where it's like, okay, I will re-sign if you let me have this allowance? You know what I'm saying? But, Joe, I wanted to dig even deeper.
Okay.
And I'm sorry?
Okay.
And I wanted to get into other OnlyFans news, and quite possibly the biggest OnlyFans story that has broke in the past couple months. And that is the fact that the face of women's wrestling.
The face?
The face, Tay Mello, launched her OnlyFans on October 22nd for the low price of $20 a month. Now, I am told that this is high for an OnlyFans. But since then, she has posted a total of 14 pictures and one video. And the video is an additional cost. So if you wanted to see all 14 of those pictures, you would have paid $40 plus tax already. I do not know the price of the pay-per-view video. I will look into that. But I dug a little deeper, Joe. And I opened up an incognito browser, and I fought an army of pop-ups and redirects, and I was able to view the pictures. And
okay.
I will say that there's nothing of note there that you wouldn't have already seen on Instagram. So I might even go so far as to say that the face of women's wrestling is quite possibly, I don't want to say defrauding her fans, but maybe fleecing them. Maybe they're easy targets. I will continue to monitor this situation going forward, of course, and I'm going to need you to approve an expense report.
Well, that I can't help you with. I thought where you were going was, you mentioned about the $20. As is I thought where you were going was the Mandy Rose OnlyFans thing, right? Mm-hmm. And they say it's OnlyFans, but I think like OnlyFans is like your catch-all for these sort of things, right?
Yeah, like for example, Billie Kay, I hear has like something else, but it's just through her website. But people say she has OnlyFans.
Yeah, so this is through Mandy Rose's website. It's powered by something called Fan Time. Okay,
sounds legit.
And it's a $20 a month subscription thing. And again, I think if you're a high end person, you know, you could do that, right? But then you could tip Mandy Rose, and apparently, for the price of $35, she will give you a rating on your genitalia.
Oh.
I thought that's what your story was going to be this week.
This is news to me.
Okay.
This would have been like, I feel like I definitely missed out on an opportunity there, but I'm glad you filled it in.
Well, listen, like you do a journalism. I have these things rattling around in my head, you know?
Yep. There we go. Okay. Like I said, I'll continue to look into these things. I have a whole team on this as well.
Mm-hmm. Another thing from this week to talk about, the Sami Zayn Bloodline segment that opened up SmackDown this week.
Oh, so good.
Sami getting everyone to crack and break character. And they're like, they can't even hide it anymore. I can't imagine like them getting scripted promos at this point. I assume they get bullet points. It's like Roman's going to yell at Jay's going to say this, Sami's going to make some sort of remark, and then we're going to transition to this. Because if this stuff is scripted and they have a heads up that Sami's going to say the stuff that he is, that's just crazy, right?
Yeah, like it wouldn't have been a natural reaction. You know, they wouldn't have been breaking up that badly if they knew it was coming.
Right. So this was on my list to begin with, but I've had quite the week. Today I had to cut out real quick because there was a suspicion of a gas leak at my kid's school.
Oh, shit.
So they evacuated the school, and they had they gave the parents like 15 minutes notice, like, come get your kids, right?
Okay.
And I live close to where my kid goes to school. I pull up, all the kids are outside, and it's a madhouse, right? It's 4th and 5th grade. It's 5 classes of each grade, and just all the kids are outside the building. You know, the principals and the teachers and everyone else is trying to contact parents, get notice out to come get your kids, and so on and so forth. And I'm walking looking for my kid, and I see a kid wearing a Roman Reigns shirt.
Okay.
So I point at him, and I go, Roman Reigns. And he goes, hey. I go, Sami Zayn's the best. And he gets a look on his face. The kid's probably like 10 or 11, right? And he goes, I hate Sami Zayn. I go, what? I go, you hate Sami Zayn? I go, he's the best member of the Bloodline. He goes, he's not a member of the Bloodline. I go, he's an honorary Uce. Of course he is.
Look at you freaking getting in a fight with an 11-year-old.
Yeah, he might have been 10, but 11-year-old. But I do that anytime I see, like, in, like, normal situations, I see, like, a kid or something wearing a wrestling shirt. Like, when I wear a stupid shirt, I'm doing it because I'm like, I like this thing. I'm wearing a billboard on my chest to say, hey, if you like this dumb thing too, come over and talk to me, right?
Yeah.
And this kid, he wore that shirt because he likes Roman. You know, I don't know how many kids in his school like wrestling. You know, the Halloween parade. There was one kid dressed as Freddy Krueger with the neck flaps tucked out. I don't think he's a Doug Gilbert fan. But there was no, like, wrestling representation. So, you know, I just thought it was funny to mess with that kid about Sami Zayn.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to encourage wrestling fans at a young age. Like, I've talked about a lot of times, my buddy's kid, he's the one that, like, I buy him wrestling figures. And, like, he came to the last, the Steel Stack show.
Yeah.
So I was talking to his dad, my buddy, we were watching the Yankee game last week or the week before, and he's like, hey, Julian, we're getting way behind on AEW. Julian just doesn't want to watch wrestling anymore. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, he even asked his mom, he's like, Mom, will you make sure that people don't buy me wrestling figures for Christmas?
Aww.
And I was so, like, disheartened and sad, but, like, I kind of want to go to him and be like, yo, I'm going to tell Eddie Kingston you won't watch wrestling and see if that scares him back straight.
It'd scare you back straight. You're a 30-plus-year-old man.
I know. Like, I was thinking, like, but then I might, like, traumatize the kid. Like,
yeah.
He's going to be checking under his bed for Eddie Kingston at night. Anyways.
Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I have a feeling that I know what your main event is going to be.
You do?
Oh, I might.
Gotta wait for it to kick in. I played the whole song. I don't know if you can hear me over. I didn't like cut it down low. So we're just gonna stop it there. So I mentioned I had a busy week, a lot of running around. I didn't get a chance to watch AEW live. I was going to text. Usually when something big happens on AEW, I get a text from DJ from We Need Wrestling, and he's just like, hey. And I was going to send him a text ahead of time just saying, like, hey, man, I'm not going to be watching live. I'm going to be running around, you know? Mm-hmm. So he sends me a text, and it's just all exclamation points. And I go, hey, man, I'm not watching live. And he goes, okay, you really need to avoid spoilers. And, like, you really need to watch, like, the opening segment on Dynamite, right? I'm like, all right. I'm, like, getting my kid from piano. I'm picking him up dinner. And then I get a message from someone else that just says, Double J just came out on AEW. And I'm like, God damn it. Like, I didn't want it spoiled, but I'm like, oh, my God, this is the best. So, yes, Jeff Jarrett is in AEW. He got the all-elite graphic. But most importantly, he is currently the director of business development. Okay?
Sure.
Now, I know everyone says all these things and apparently it's very polarizing in regards to people's feelings in regards to Double J, right? Mm-hmm. I just assumed everyone loves Double J, like I do. I'm always shocked to find out there's people that don't like Jeff Jarrett, okay? Uh-huh. And listen, I went through a period of my life. It was maybe like about a 6 or 7 month period, and I can't blame Jeff for this. And this is just, that was my whole thing. It's like, okay, if you're involved in a feud with Raven, I don't think wrestling's a work anymore, and I kind of like work myself into a shoot, and I think this is real, right?
Sure.
I didn't like how the Raven Jeff Jarrett NWA title program went in TNA. I found out afterwards there was legitimate reasons for it. Still wasn't happy about it. I get both sides. I'm a bigger Raven guy, but obviously Jarrett's, got the longevity in regards to these sort of things, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone, like, I loved all the tweets of people saying it's like, just plug Jeff Jarrett into all CM Punk's programs and everything's solved, And again, obviously on TV, you're getting things set up to do, hopefully at the pay-per-view that I'm going to in 2 weeks, some sort of combination of like Jarrett and Jay Lethal against Darby and Sting, right? We're gonna get Jeff Jarrett and Sting in AEW, right? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna get to hear My World. I hope it's the spooky version. I'm gonna get to see Double J wrestle for the first time in like forever. It's gonna be awesome, right? Uh-huh. And as you get older, okay, you realize there's two types of wrestling fans. There's fans that like Jeff Jarrett, and then there's people who don't understand how business works. Okay? And I'm not saying the business, because the business when it comes to wrestling, it's bullshit, right? Wrestling is corny. Wrestling is a joke. Wrestling is fucking orange muscleheads selling multiple purple jackets to goofs online, right? But if you could somehow convince legitimate businesses to get involved with this carny business that is professional wrestling, then I think maybe you're a step above everyone else, right? And listen, everyone can say it's like, oh, Jeff Jarrett got the second life because Bruce making fun of him on TV, okay? Or making fun of him on the podcast. And you could say all the other things, LOL TNA, right? Let's go through Jeff Jarrett. And I'm not going to say the whole thing. It's like, oh, he's been in every single promotion. He's done these sort of things. Okay, when he was involved in TNA, he got the NFL involved. He got NASCAR involved. He got Fox Sports and the Best Damn Sports Show involved. He got Spike TV involved. He got Spike TV to get them to a 2-hour deal. He got Spike TV to pay for the contracts of Hulk Hogan and Sting and all these other people. He convinced Panda Energy to sink millions of dollars into TNA, right? He convinced all these minor league baseball teams, and I don't think there's minor league baseball is not the same way as like MLB, where like it's all these like little individual fiefdoms, and of course,
yeah, it's more of a mom and pop operation,
right? So he convinced multiple minor league baseball franchises to get involved with professional wrestling, right? And he was in charge of live events when WWE was just getting back from the pandemic and running live shows again. They were canceling live events, and then they hired Jarrett, and Jarrett turned the ship around, right? Mm-hmm. It's one thing, and listen, I'm the first one to say, Jeff Jarrett, get that bag. Jeff Jarrett always gets the money. Jeff Jarrett always wins. And listen, Jeff Jarrett always does win. But there's one thing, if he's this carny, he sucks, he's a scumbag, he's this, oh, and I forgot, if it wasn't for Jeff Jarrett convincing New Japan to use Jim Ross on their commentary, whatever your opinion of Jim Ross is, right? He convinces New Japan to use Jim Ross as their commentary on the American thing. That gets New Japan the deal on Access TV, which gets New Japan on a huge market in the United States, which it had never had before. That was Jeff Jarrett, okay? So,
yeah, and I would have never watched New Japan if it wasn't on Access, when I started getting into it.
So if you're a fan of AJ Styles era Bullet Club New Japan to now, you need to send Jeff Jarrett a thank you card, because it was him who brokered that deal, right?
And he was a Bullet Club member too.
And the last time the Bullet Club was cool was when Jeff Jarrett was in it. So that's like, I'm forgetting other deals that Jarrett has brokered in the world of professional wrestling. And listen, if he was this carny scumbag like everyone claims that he is, which he's not, do you think they would have figured it out after the first time, the second time, the third time, the 20th time? No, because what Jeff Jarrett does is he doesn't just make himself money, he makes the people that he works with money. He made NASCAR money when they did this stuff with TNA. He made the NFL get some prominence. Obviously, it was very self-serving for himself, but these people all got something out of these deals with Jeff Jarrett. And AEW is not hiring Jeff Jarrett to like come in and win their title. And like, oh, well, now the Bucks and Kenny can't come in because we have Jeff Jarrett now. No, Jeff's going to be on TV for maybe a month. He might pop up as a special character every now and then. He's going to get a box set of Double J figures throughout the years, which we're going to see before I get my fucking Zombie Sailor fucking retro, right?
Absolutely.
But Jeff Jarrett's going to be the one that's going to help them branch out and get new markets. Jeff Jarrett's going to help them get into some of those buildings that, listen, maybe when he was working for the WWE over the summer, he just like lifted their plans on how to run live events correctly and is now giving it to AEW. I'm not saying that that's not above Jeff Jarrett, but it absolutely would. And the other thing I'll mention is we talk about 1997 wrestling all the time because Raws and Nitro line up with when we record. We're talking 25 years ago. There's two guys from that era that are still in active roles in professional wrestling. One is Jarrett, the other is Sting, okay?
And Billy Gunn.
Okay? So Billy Gunn notwithstanding, Jarrett and Sting, whatever your opinion of them are, they found Jesus, they cleaned their lives up, they got better with their family, but most importantly, they make everyone else money. When you see that Jungle Boy and MJF and Britt Baker are doing a 3-day convention signing at a comic book convention in Rhode Island, that's because of Sting. Sting and his agent is the one that brokered all of those deals for the AEW people.
Okay.
When Jarrett does what he has done, he makes money and more money for the other wrestlers. He makes his own money, but everybody else gets a cut too. It's not like Jarrett's keeping all the money, except for that one time when he held Vince up at gunpoint and made him pay him off the door before he would drop the Intercontinental title to China. But time is going to tell. And listen, if it comes out that Jeff Jarrett causes AEW to fold in 6 months, I'll come on the show and say, hey, man, I was wrong. I fucked up. Jeff Jarrett sucks, right? Yeah. But I got a real good feeling that ain't going to happen. But I also got a real good feeling that none of you people that hate Jeff Jarrett are going to change your tune. Look at what your favorite wrestler says about Jeff Jarrett. They love Jeff Jarrett. And why do they love Jeff Jarrett? Because he knows how to make money in the world of professional wrestling. And if a little bit of what Jeff does can rub off on your favorite wrestler, that's why your favorite wrestler wrestles. He doesn't do it for the love of the game. He doesn't do it for the dream matches. He doesn't do it for the roar of the crowd. He does it he or she does it for the money. And Jeff Jarrett is the king at making money in professional wrestling. All hail the king of the mountain, Planet Jarrett. I'm going to see Jeff Jarrett wrestle live in 2 weeks.
just a quick aside on this past episode of Porch Talk. Todd asked me how, because I think he was trying to formulate a tweet, and he asked me, how do you spell Jeff Jarrett? What? So I, of course, went JEFFJARRETT. That's double J, Jeff Jarrett.
The world's greatest singer, the world's greatest entertainer.
Yeah, so I will say I agree with everything you said about Jeff Jarrett. I am not a huge Jarrett fan like you and a lot of the people in our circle, but I agree with everything you said. I'm not somebody that will roll his eyes when I see Jeff Jarrett, because I don't think he hurts the television product. But I will say, regarding that segment, the actual match where he debuted, Darby versus Jay Lethal. Yeah. So I just want to say, when they revealed who the fake Sting was, I was like, all right, I hate AEW. I hate wrestling. I hate television. I hate everything, because this was the biggest letdown on the planet. And then when Jarrett shows up in his like GCW, like I'm a heel outfit, I was like, all right, everything's right with the world. I like this.
I'm going to throw one last one in there about the praise for Jeff Jarrett, right?
Yeah.
Everyone loves Effie, right? Effie's the best. Effie is daddy. Effie is whatever, right? What's the most memorable thing that Effie has done in his career? Is it his matches with Schlack? Is it a match with Nick Gage? Is it a tag match as part of Bussy? No. You know what? To this day, some 11 months on, the thing that Effie is most known for is being made to look a fool by Jeff Jarrett.
I'll take your word on that. I'm only familiar with Super Effie.
Okay. And that's the thing, like, outside of you, who's a broski apologist, you're the only one who remembers that, but even still, man, you brush up against Double J and you make money.
Yeah. And credit to Jerry, it looks like $1 million.
Yeah, man, listen, I know young Ed was giving him shit for the Thomas Jefferson quote the other day, and Jeff is a very inspirational quote guy. He's in the program, and whether you believe it or not, it works for some people, and it works for a lot of people. And I think it was maybe like a week or two ago, he posted his 5-year clean chip, man. And that's the other thing, 5 years clean. So for a good part of his run, when he was making these deals with Fox Sports and the NFL and NASCAR and Spike TV and all these other things, he was fucked up all the time. Booze, pills, coke, all of it. And he was still making money. Now, 5 years on, focus on just the money. He's unstoppable.
Yeah. Look out, WWE.
Listen, as somebody else said, last time WWE got hired, or Double J got hired by a major wrestling company, the owner was ousted in 3 months. If I'm Tony Khan, don't let your dad and Double J be in the room together alone for any period of time.
You're going to see Jeff running those post-pay-per-view scrums.
Oh, Punk ain't going to cock off in front of Double J. Fuck no.
I don't think Punk's in a position to be cocking off anywhere anytime soon.
He's cocking off at home, in front of nobody. In
front of AJ.
Hey, you know what? It's been over a year. Fuck Phil. Fuck his dog. Fuck his lies. He had a year. He got a brand new bunny. And within, weeks of that year being up, he didn't eat the bunny. He threw it out a fucking window.
Oh.
Fuck
all right.
Phil.
That didn't take long.
No heat, no heater segment here. Fuck that. I'm not even putting the music in. I'll play My World again.
All right. Do you have anything else?
No. This is an extended no heat, no heater all heat, no heater segment, because we're going to talk about the homework now.
All right.
Homework. It's an obligation you owe your family and yourself. Homework. homework. It's an obligation you owe your family and yourself.
You want to introduce your homework?
I suppose. I assigned you, as well as everyone else, available exclusively on YouTube. I'm sure a lot of people are vying to get the rights to this, but Nightmare Factory Showcase number 6. And if you haven't already, go check out masslibrary.com. Our friend Kevin had a very good write-up of this homework. I'm beginning to think he doesn't enjoy these shows. I don't know why.
No one enjoys these shows, Adam. So these shows are the end of a 12-week intensive camp, kind of like a fantasy camp for people involved in the world of wrestling, people who want to be involved in the world of wrestling. There's all sorts of different skill levels here. There's people having their first match. There's people that have been wrestling for a year. There's been people wrestling for even longer. Now, I'm going to do my best to not give a hard time to the people that they very clearly said this was their first match, but I will say, clearly said is a problem because the way that the commentary was mic'd up, yet again, many times it was barely audible of what they were saying, and I had to put the subtitles on in the hopes to figure out what was going on, right?
Yeah, and you're going to be somewhat respectable. I'm going to bury whoever I feel like burying.
All right, well, that's the difference between me and you. I've taken one bump in the world of professional wrestling, so I'm allowed to critique professional wrestlers, and I'm deciding not to because I want to hopefully have Jimbo on the show sometime in the near future, and I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Alienate him.
Right. And I didn't point out any of the referees on the show, not counting someone's shoulders down for a pin. Just because it's a student show, you shouldn't like fucking compromise the integrity of your referees. Anywho, so the commentary was low. There was 3 different commentators throughout the course of the night. There was one who was like Jim Schuyler, maybe, who was doing like a heel commentator gimmick. He was the worst of the lot. The other 2 were fine, but there was less people in the crowd. But somehow the less people were mic'd up better.
Yeah, and it felt like there was like maybe multiple microphones picking up like the crowd noise.
Yeah,
and the mix, you would hear the same thing, but you'd hear it twice because like the mics weren't in sync.
Yeah, so I'll shit all over the production on this like I am now because I think the production on this is done by DDP's production house. And I can't imagine them putting I'll get more specific things out, right? But if you remember from the last time that Adam assigned one of these Nightmare Family showcases, there was 3 cameras, a hard camera, a camera on the floor, and a camera on the apron. And never during the course of the 5th one did they ever use a shot from the camera on the apron. Okay?
Yeah.
They did use shots from the camera on the apron in this one, and as Kevin pointed out, and I'm like, every time they cut to that camera, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Is there something wrong with the video? Is there something wrong with my internet connection? Apparently that 3rd camera that was on the apron was a different frame rate, so it was making everything look slower.
Yeah, it looked like the John Morrison entrance.
Yeah, it was real fucked up, man.
Entrance. And I also commented in my notes here that it doesn't even feel like this show is recorded in high definition.
No, it's definitely not.
It's like DVD quality, if that, or like an old VHS to DVD transfer of like an ECW show. Like just the video quality is terrible for a show that was made in 2022.
Yes. And I'll say this again, so I'm not harping on it every single match. The average match time on this show was about 8 to 9 minutes. For people having their first match ever, 6 minutes is fine. Mm-hmm. Tell them they have 4, so when they go 6, you're okay with it. They don't need to know that in your head you only wanted them to go 6.
Yeah.
Because no one ever sticks to their times ever. But every match on the show was too long, and it felt like it was too long.
Oh, yeah.
So as mentioned, the opening contest was Jimbo taking on Justin Xavier. Jimbo, this was his first match ever. And this was the classic battle of a guy from the Air Force versus a kid who bought like off the rack tights that have Pac-Man on them.
He's a Pac-Man enthusiast, Joe.
Listen, I'm a fucking Pac-Man enthusiast as a 45-year-old person. This kid couldn't have been more than 21. So listen, he bought those off the rack, right?
Yeah.
And hey, you know, like, this is another one I'm not going to harp on too much. Again, I've taken one bump in the world of professional wrestling. I've been watching professional wrestling for the better part of, you know, almost 40 years of my life. I've been involved in professional wrestling for the better part of the last, let's say, 17 years of my life as an active participant, as a commentator. Again, I'm not a physically whatever, but the two things that looked the worst on the show, there was stuff that looked bad, but the two things that looked the worst on this show were arm drags and clotheslines, okay? Most of the new people throwing clotheslines look like dog shit, and most of the people that have, like, cage match profiles and many matches under their belt, their clotheslines look like shit, right?
They would just put their arm up, and, like, hopefully the other guy would run into the arm.
But they wouldn't even, so they'd put their arm up, but they wouldn't even put their arm straight.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't even put, like, if you're going to clothesline, you're going to put your arm parallel to your shoulder, okay? Or horizontal with your shoulder. Kind of like, let's think the Macho Man Hasbro figure, right?
Sure.
That's how your arm should be, that high up, that straight, and you hook it, right? These guys were, like, doing, like, the lazy, like, I bring my arm up to my midsection and I hook my arm. You better run into it because I'm not making any other motions, right?
Yeah.
And then so many of the arm drags on this, and the arm drag is a very complicated move to do. But if you and your opponent are working together, and listen, wrestling is a cooperation between the people in the ring. You're not trying to hurt each other, but you're trying to create the illusion of hurting your opponent to win the match. So many people were not posting correctly on their arm drags. Other people were not assisting the person taking the arm drag and getting over. And we could have seen a lot of people get fucked up on arm drags on the show. On fucking arm drags, man. Like, I don't know who's running the school these days. I know Cody cuts a promo at the beginning of the thing, says this is his school. I don't know who it is, man, but, like, fucking go back and watch this show and look at these fucking shitty arm drags and look at these fucking shitty clotheslines and, like, fix that shit in your classes, man. You have these people for 12 weeks. Fucking spend a week on clotheslines and spend a week on arm drags.
Yeah, no, so, like, a lot of the earlier shows had the battle royals at the end, and they would kind of throw in some people who couldn't quite have a match yet.
Sure.
And that hasn't happened the last couple showcases. But is it just me, or does this feel like this was the most... I mean, there was a couple people who stood out as being pretty good or decent, but was this the most untrained showcase we've seen so far? Because it felt like that to me.
So, yes, but I would say that this is probably the biggest number of people that have had this is their first match, but this is also the biggest number of people that I would say were poorly trained coming into this.
Yeah, because there's a couple, and we'll get into them, where they just like, holy shit, have you ever even seen a wrestling match before, you know?
Yeah. Right. So this match was whatever, right? Justin Xavier wins.
Yeah, 9.5 minutes of nothing.
Right. Okay, so the next match is a tag team match. And I got a lot of fucking notes on this, okay?
Yeah.
So the heel team comes out, okay? And the Chiron says Kojo and Lesnar. Lesnar is wearing a shirt that says Lesnar Guerrero. Yep. The ring announcer and commentators called him Kojio and Jay Lima.
Close enough.
Guys, what the fuck are we doing, right? Yeah. Like, match 2, and you can't even get the guys' fucking names right.
Yeah.
Embarrassing. They take on Vari Morales, who I've actually seen on episodes of AEW Dark, and Big CA. Now, Big CA actually is from Spain. Like, he runs a promotion in Spain, okay?
All right.
Okay? He's only been wrestling for about a year or two. Again, I will say, if you want to imagine what he looks like, picture the skinny wolf from Stranglemania and Mr. Hitman, and you have Big CA, right?
Yeah, and it's hard to tell based on who he's in the ring with, because there's not exactly any giants in that ring, but would you hazard to say he's any bigger than, like, 6'1"?
I I would say he's probably like 6'2"-ish because they did smartly put him in there with a bunch of short guys. They were claiming that he was like 6'4", 6'5", which I don't think is correct.
No, like if him against the ropes, like the ropes were up to like his chest.
So this is one of 1, 2. Was there a third tag match on this show? Yeah, so this is one of 3 tag matches on this show that are all wrestled the same exact formula. Where, like, for some reason, like, the baby faces get the shine, but then the heels work the corner like they're the baby faces. Then the heels do a bunch of cool moves, which the heels shouldn't do. The heels should be preventing the baby faces from doing cool shit. And then, like, a clusterfuck at the end where it's, like, clumsy and awkward. Very Morales turns on Big CA for no reason, and allows Kogio, Lesnar, Guerrero, Jay Lima to get the win. And on commentary, they make the same Oprah, you get a blank, you get a blank, you get a blank, shitty joke twice on the same match.
Yeah, and the hot tag that is given to Big CA, where he starts delivering clotheslines to everybody, is probably the funniest thing I've seen in a long time, and I need to see that gift. You know, that needs to be like that guy that got eliminated from the Battle Royal, but he was like running the indie promotion, and he landed on his head, like how that made all the rounds this past week. Yeah, I think if enough people saw this hot tag from Big CA, this would be almost as popular.
It was very who's the fucking guy in Hit Row that stinks?
Top Dollar.
Dollar King. It was a very Dollar King hot tag.
Yeah, I might even put over Dollar King and say that he looked better than Big CA. Just barely.
So the next match is the Spartan of Pain taking on Darian Bengston. Now, I will say Darian Bengston is a guy who has been kicking around the Southeast Indies for a while, and it really showed. He stood out on this show both in his looks, the way that he worked the minuscule crowd, because typically the way that these shows work is whoever comes out first is the heel, whoever comes out second is the babyface, right? Mm-hmm. So Spartan of Pain comes out in the heel part, and he kind of gets some boos, but then Bengston comes out and works heel to the crowd, so that turns Spartan of Pain babyface, which was the smart thing to do, because I think this was Spartan of Pain's first match ever, and there was no fucking way he was going to be able to control a match. Keep your eye on Darian Bengston, because if he was able to get a serviceable match out of Spartan of Pain, he's probably pretty good.
Yeah, and if you thought Big CA was bad, the Spartan of Pain might have been like the most untrained person like ever on one of these shows. The guy couldn't lift up Bengston in like a side suplex or anything like that. The only times he got any offense in where he had to lift somebody or where he had to lift Bengston is where Bengston would get up on the top rope and sit there, so that all the Spartan had to do would be like just briefly support the weight and then drop him. You know,
like I said, I'm keeping my people that are having their first match ever. I'm keeping my remarks to myself. Okay.
Yeah, and are there no gyms in Sparta anymore?
Next match, we have Charlotte Renegade, but they say her name weird, right?
Yeah, it's like Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte Renegade taking on Ryan Hawthorne. Now, the Renegade sisters typically do like a heel twin magic act on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, where they do the twin magic thing and they still get beat anyway. But Ryan Hawthorne is doing like an evil nurse gimmick.
Yeah, briefly. I think it was like dropped right after the introduction. But.
Yeah, it's like one of those things like her gear did not match being an evil nurse, but she must have mentioned to someone during the 12 weeks that she used to be a nurse. So they're like, we're going to give you a nurse gimmick and just put a nurse coat on over your fucking gear, right?
Yeah, and a stethoscope, which, you know, nurses are famous to have.
Right, and it's one of those deals where I think, like I said, the Renegade sisters typically work heel. Charlotte was forced to work babyface, and I think she did a good job kind of playing against the type that she normally does on TV.
Yeah, and again, if you want to look for something very entertaining to watch Ryan run the ropes and duck clotheslines. She's running like, you remember when like Triple H was making fun of the Ultimate Warrior running in slow motion?
Yes.
What we got on that. And every single match, I'm like, okay, now this has to be the worst wrestler of the night. And every time I'm wrong.
They just keep... Anyway. So next up, we have Dean Cooper and Jay Lucas taking on Cobra Singh and Zach Apollyon.
The American Spartan, Zach Apollyon. 2 Spartans tonight.
Right. So we have 2 Spartans on the show. Cobra Singh's got a good look.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's all I got to say about this match.
Yeah, it's a competent but long and boring match.
Yeah, nothing really happens. This is maybe the second longest match in the show at almost 11 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, we have a 3-way match of the Cruiserweight Classic. I don't know how a man can be an entire tournament. Larry Lazard taking on Teriyaki.
Get it?
Yes, I do. Taking on Baron Black. Now, I know for sure I've seen Teriyaki and Baron Black on episodes of AEW Dark. Larry Lazard, I don't think I've seen, or if I have seen, he didn't make a real impression on me. This was a flippy-do match that they put Baron Black in, who's the most experienced out of the 3, to try to, like, keep these guys under control, which made it an entertaining match in that respect. But again, the match was like 12 minutes, way longer than it should have been. This should have been your opener, and I know it's just a student show, but if you want to get people talking, they should have let Larry Lazard, Teriyaki go out there, do their best 6 minutes of flips, and that's it.
Yeah. Like towards the end of the match, Lazard does like a 450 stomp, which I thought was awesome on Black. It was only a 2, and like seconds after he delivered that, Black gets up and he's immediately like on the offensive again. Like what should have been like a finishing move or a devastating move was just seeing like a hip toss, which kind of stood out for me.
Right.
And at one point, Teriyaki dropped Black on his head, and the commentators called it a unique suplex. Yeah,
I mentioned commentary is bad.
I'm not. I don't do that. I don't criticize commentary.
I can criticize commentary. So next up, we have Robin Renegade taking on. If you looked at the Chiron said Cap'n, CAPTN. Next word dream. Next word boat.
Yeah. And honestly, she should have been called Vicky the Wagon Dreamboat, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I saw somebody send up the grease signal for you for this match. But no, this is Vicky Dreamboat, who has wrestled a bunch on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation. Go out of your way. She had a match with Abaddon. That's exactly what you think it would be. She kicks around the Florida Indies a bunch. Again, this match was 8 minutes. The commentators were putting over that Vicky is just coming back from a broken foot. They decide to work like the first 2 minutes of the match around that and then forget it for the next 6 minutes of the match. Vicky has been wrestling a long time and she fucked up a ton in this match. The finisher was her attempting to do the wheelbarrow stunner, and Robin Renegade went to sell it the wrong way and it looked all fucked up, and they still just had it be the finisher.
Yeah, I don't want to say you should have just had the women tagging, but I mean, it would have made sense to have the Renegade Sisters be a tag team and maybe not expose everybody as much by having them wrestle one-on-one. Like, it kind of would have killed some time or saved us some time.
Right. Instead of having Ryan Hawthorne be an evil nurse, she's a nice nurse.
Yeah.
But I think if Vicky Dreamboat, she's got a good look. She got an interesting name. She's out there busting her ass, trying to get bookings. She's on the radar because she's been on Dark a bunch. Yeah, that's it. Next up, we have the Southeast SWAT team of Luke Sampson and Trevor Blackwell, who are the Nightmare Factory Tag Team Champions.
Yeah, and I popped huge for Hellions saying that they won the tag straps in Rio de Janeiro.
Right. Taking on the Rocket Josh Benson and the Viking Warrior Logan Ragnarok.
typical Norse name, Logan.
Right. That's like naming yourself like fucking, oh, what's your name? Oh, my name is Winter Soldier Iron Man, you know? Like, you uncreative fuck. Yeah. Logan Ragnarok is our second fake Brock Lesnar on the show. Jay Lima was just calling himself Lesnar Guerrero, but this guy is like doing like the whole like the ponytail Lesnar look, right?
Yeah.
He even does a shitty F5 in the match that Luke Sampson no-sells. Luke Sampson and Trevor Blackwell, while they may be a regular tag team and they may be the Nightmare Family tag team champions, they have zero chemistry. They were constantly in each other's way. They were constantly tripping over each other's feet, trying to do the most basic of double team offense to their opponents. Josh Benson was fine, but there's only one Rocket in professional wrestling, and that's Owen Hart. And Logan Ragnarok has a good look, but I don't think him and Luke Sampson get along.
Okay. Yeah, I got to the point on the show where it's like, all right, there's some enjoyment for me. Like, I kind of like watching the bad wrestling aspect of some of these shows. Surprise, surprise. And, like, you're getting to the point where while they're not polished, they're not, like, obviously terrible. And at the same time, they're not, like, having a good, fun match. So it's just kind of blah. It's just four people doing moves. Like, okay, it's your turn. Now it's my turn. And there's no psychology to it. There's no excitement. And maybe some of that could have been saved by having, like, a real crowd, you know, but...
or more crowd, because there's been times in the past where they have, like, more people that just didn't get on the show that were in the crowd. And, like, especially by this time in the match, like, during the heat segment in this tag match, there's, like, 3 or 4 people just, like, on their phones not paying attention to the match.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like it's definitely just, like, friends of the wrestlers, and if your person isn't in the ring, they didn't give a shit.
Right.
You know? All right, what's next?
And then we have our main event, the star of the Nightmare Family Showcase, Dean Alexander, taking on Shoot Taylor. He has Shooter on his tights. He did like 1 or 2 amateur moves, but for the most part, all he did was just take Dean Alexander's basic 80s, early 90s heel offense until he does a little bit of a comeback, does a Falcon Arrow gimmick off the top rope, and then Dean Alexander loses to continue his losing streak on the Nightmare Family Showcase events.
Yeah, he's 0-6. He's like the Dan Champion of the Nightmare Factory.
Oh, my goodness. No, Dan beat Chris Worthless once. I'll tell you that.
So I was half expecting to be like, Big Dean!
But Dean Alexander is fine, but he just needs something. I remember there was one thing I noticed was nobody got promos on this show, and there's been previous ones where people have cut promos.
Yeah.
And there was a
blessing and like a downside.
Right, but at least it's something, you know? Yeah. And I know there was the one episode of this where they had like Dean Alexander coming out like wearing like a different robe, and then he had like a valet, and they were trying to like gussy him up a little bit. And then this time he just comes out and he's just like, here's a guy, you know?
Yeah, he's like a guy who's like, seems to be a good hand, but there's nothing exciting about him or appealing about him. Mm-hmm. You know, you don't want to boo him, you don't want to cheer him, he's just kind of there.
He's just a guy.
Yeah, just a guy.
So yeah, I'm not going to say that this was the worst of them, but this was definitely the blandest of the Nightmare Family Showcases. And at the very least, nobody from this. I think this was released about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago. It was probably filmed a month prior to that. And at least nobody who was on this show, as of this recording, has been canceled for like faking COVID tests or being racist like previous people have.
Give it time.
Okay, but like I said, as of this recording, I said, right?
Yeah.
So now it's time for my homework. Okay.
All right, what do you got for me, Joe?
Okay, so continuing on the Chikara stuff that we've been watching, we are going to be watching the Chikara Return show after watching Ashes, the event that was set up there. This is May 24th, 2014, the Chikara event, You Only Live Twice. Now, a couple caveats with this. We're not going to be watching the entire show. Between me and you, the entire show is not great. But I do... Adam, today I learned how to make a YouTube playlist.
Oh, look at you.
So you'll see, it'll be in the show notes. I know it's going to look daunting, that it is 8 videos, but the total runtime of the 8 videos is approximately 2, 4, 6, 8, 12, 16, let's say 26 minutes, give or take a couple seconds. And it includes an Eddie Kingston promo. So,
yeah, I mean, well, you got to be at Eddie Kingston. That's
right. So on the show itself, and it'll be in the show notes, of course, the link to the event on independentwrestling.tv. The playlist will be linked up there as well. Opening is the BDK taking on the Spectral Envoy. We're watching that. Ashley Remington taking on Chuck Taylor. We're watching that. We're skipping the Batiri versus the Auditorium. We're skipping Jervis Cottonbelly versus Juan Francisco de Coronado. We're skipping Pieces of Hate versus Throwbacks versus 3.0 versus Kikito. We are watching Archibald Peck versus Jimmy Jacobs in the battle of the current heads of TNA Creative. We're skipping the Colony versus Colony Extreme Force. And, of course, we're watching the main event of Eddie Kingston versus Icarus for the Grand Championship.
Okay, what's that? 1, 2, 3, only 4 matches.
Right, 4 matches, the 26 minutes of promo material. Trust me, especially with a lot of the Ant stuff, that's going to be covered in those previously on videos.
Okay. I'm skipping all the Ant stuff from the looks of it.
Right, but you get what you would have got out of watching the Ant match, you get in that 6-minute previously on video.
Gotcha. All right.
Yeah.
If there's anything I like, it's skipping the wrestling and watching promos.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So let's get into voicemail, huh?
Let's do it.
Hello, guys. Strongest man in all the land, Arthur MacArthur here. Sorry I missed last week. I was a little busy. With the ballerina dancing and whatnot. Adam, I apologize for not letting you know in advance about the costume change. I don't know if I'm ever going to do it again. It seems like Thorne was way too high on it than he should have been, and everyone else. So, I don't know. You might need to invest in a tutu. We'll discuss later. Anyways, this past Halloween, I did an electrified steel cage match. And I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The cage wasn't actually electric.
What?
But there was an effect to make it look like it was.
Oh.
And this effect failed. Like, we threw each other into the cage, and it just didn't work out. Like, there was barely any sparks, and we had to really, really try and overemphasize it. But these Juggalo fans, say what you will about the clowns, they're not that dumb. They actually know what's going on, and they were really... You're like, oh, God, there's no sparks. What's going on? And the whole gimmick just kind of fell flat, So my question, it's more of an open discussion. Talk to me about a match in the past, anywhere, where the whole gimmick, the whole spiel of it just kind of fell flat or it failed and it just made things awkward. I think this will be a fun topic for you guys to discuss. But that's all I got. Hope you have a great one. And Adam... get on that tutu, man. It's ballet season or dancing season. Steve Guy got it wrong.
Fucking Steve Guy.
I can't believe Steve Guy got something wrong.
Well, Artie, send me a link to the one that you bought because I'm sure it's just I'll get the same exact one.
Yeah.
As far as like the matches that just didn't quite work out, obviously the easy one that sticks out in my mind is the Kenny Omega. Fucking Dean Ambrose, John Moxley exploding cage match from AEW.
Yep, the exploding ring match where Eddie Kingston came down to save him with no explosion, right?
Yeah. But what jumped out at me after I thought of that was the what was it, like the Kennel from Hell match in WWE with all the dogs surrounding the ring and they were just shitting and fucking bored.
So I was at Kennel from Hell live, and again they never did it again, not even as a goof, Yeah.
But
the one that I always think about, like obviously a couple months ago, as part of the Gathering of the Juggalos, they did what was supposed to be an electrified cage gimmick, where like you would hit and they would trigger like sparklers to get shot off, essentially, right? Mm-hmm. But it was like a lot of sparklers or Roman candles or whatever it was, and I'm sure it sounds like they tried to replicate that. It just didn't work out, and it happens, right? Yeah. There was so TNA for a period of time held the pay-per-view lockdown. Whereas part of lockdown, it was the entire show was cage matches. And, you know, it got to a point where, like, well, how could we spice up these cage matches, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they did one where it was an electrified cage, just like Artie's talking about. And I forget, it was definitely the Dudleys, right? I don't know who they were fighting. Let's say it was beer money, okay? But it was definitely the Dudleys. And what they did to simulate the electrified cage gimmick was when anyone would hit the cage, they would flash red lights in the building. Like it would like you have your normal house lights up, but they would like flash, like go dark red to simulate the electrocution effect. And there was one point in the match where Devon was like running at someone, or he got thrown like face first into the cage, and he holds onto the cage. They're doing the red light effect, and Devon is selling the electrocution, but also he's selling that his hands are stuck to the cage and he can't let go because the electricity is so hot. I don't fucking know what they were trying for. But this was one of the many, many times where there were very loud and audible Fire Russo chants. And Vince Russo will have you know that was Dutch Mantel's idea.
It sounds very like Wrestling Society X type of deal.
Yeah.
You know, we need a Piranha match again.
I agree. All right,
Thanks,
next
Artie.
call. Thank you, Artie.
Hello, gentlemen. Kevin here. So let me tell you something, and then they'll come around to my question. So if you're not aware, China's been launching these rockets into space for their own space station, and the booster rocket part that is supposed to be a controlled descent, they instead just let fall where it may, deciding that like 75-80% of the planet is water anyways. Chances are it'll fall down in water. And so there's one coming crashing to Earth right now. It'll probably land, I think they're guessing Tuesday right now, somewhere. Don't know where yet. Hopefully over water. And they keep doing this and keep doing this. And eventually they're going to get to the point where if you keep doing something, expecting bad things won't happen because the odds are low, something bad's going to happen. So how many Saudi Arabia shows will it take for something really bad to happen? I ask this despite knowing that they just left most of their talent there a few years ago and knowing that there's currently a terrorist threat around the venue right now. So over under how many times or how many years out before something really, truly horrible, awful happens for a WWE Saudi Arabia show? That's my question for this week. Looking forward to the show, guys. Talk to you later.
So we don't do the Saudi Arabia shows.
Yeah.
But as I understand it, they have a deal with the Saudi government to be doing at least like 3 or 4 more years of shows. So it doesn't matter how many bad things happen. They're going to just keep doing them, you know?
Yeah, because they got a fuck ton of money, and if they don't do it, their stocks will go down. Their stock will go down, and that's really the number one priority over safety.
Yeah.
Oh man, what was I gonna say? Well, I mean, WWE, they moved to WrestleMania because of a terrorist threat, so they take security really, really seriously.
That's right. Definitely wasn't because they couldn't sell out the 100,000 seat LA Sports Complex for Hulk Hogan versus washed Sergeant Slaughter, right?
Definitely not. It was
definitely
safety of everybody is the number one.
But this looks like a very funny card as I'm looking at the Crown Jewel card for this weekend. There is rumor that even though he's not listed, that they are bringing Bray Wyatt over there to do like a promo segment.
Yeah. If I was him, I would be like, I'll just tape that. Right.
Well, I did read on internet today, social media today, that CM Punk is coming to WWE to fight Uncle Howdy. So, listen,
I read that too. It might have been on your Twitter.
I don't know what you're talking about. I just saw it. I saw a lot of people tweeting about it. Is all, you know.
Many people are saying.
Right. Yeah, I don't know, and I just hope no one gets hurt like over there because of the terrorist things that are going on.
Yeah,
and, that's all.
I don't know if I want to say this into a microphone, but I kind of want to see Roman against Logan Paul.
I'll watch the GIFs.
Yeah, like it's one of those things where it's like, all right, I have a lot of faith in Roman, you know, and Bloodline stuff is cool, and maybe it'd be entertaining. I don't know. I'm not going to watch it live.
Right.
But anyways.
All right. Thank you for calling, Kevin. Next call.
Hey, Adam, Joe. It's Jay Hawk from Independent Wrestling Guys. Good to talk to you guys again. It's been a while. Very interesting couple of weeks with the independent wrestling scene, with everybody jumping to FITE Plus or announcing that they're staying with IWTV, because apparently that requires an announcement of some description. Good for us on the show. It gives us a lot more options to watch when not coming to see 4 or 5 promotions all the time. But anyway, in addition to all the independent wrestling that I watch, I've been getting into a binge of some old Jim Crockett stuff from the mid-'80s, 1985 or so, and before wrestling it gets to for Adam. And these TV shows in January, February 85 are, like, really weird. Like, the squash matches are even, like, pretty good by that standard of the time. But I'm watching these shows, and they're interviewing the same talent 2 or 3 different times every show. I just finished watching an episode of Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling from February 5th, 1985, where Paul Jones is interviewed 3 times, and every interview is about superstar Billy Graham the Barbarian. Like, do I need to hear the same people talk 3 times in a show? And that's not even counting any local promo. Well, they might be cutting a promo for a local show. I am very glad they got... I can't even say they got away from that format, but a lot of those TBS shows do the same thing. I mean, I guess, what are your guys' thoughts on that kind of thing? Should it be just one interview or promo and done, or do you think there's a need for 2 or 3 different promos going on at the exact same time? All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Have a good one.
You never have too many promos. I say less wrestling, more promos.
Well, that, you know, and thank you for the call, Jayhawk. He brings up an interesting point. That era of Jim Crockett Promotions, if you go back and read The Observer from those days, and, you know, whatever your take on Meltzer, you know, that's between you, him, and God. But, like, he hated those shows because it was no wrestling. Like, you'd get a 90 minutes or 90-second squash match and then a 4-minute Paul Jones promo. Then you'd get, like, a 60-second squash match, and then you get, like, another promo. Then you'd get, like, a 2-minute squash match, and then another Paul Jones promo, just like Jayhawk was saying. So, again, obviously he's using the Paul Jones thing as a very specific thing, but it was no different than having, like, you know, a guy who managed a bunch of different people come out and cutting a promo on different issues, you know? And through our vantage point, you know, I've been watching along with them as part of the 85 canon, you know, 84 into 85. You know, obviously the build to WrestleMania, you're going to have a Hulk Hogan promo. You're going to have a Mr. T promo. You're going to have a Paul Orndorff promo. You're going to have a Roddy Piper promo. And you're probably going to have a promo of all of them together, right? Mm-hmm. But you're building to WrestleMania. But even on the shows that weren't building to WrestleMania, they made a concerted effort, even when they were doing, like, the localized house show promos. Like, you would not get 2, let's say, Junkyard Dog promos in the same show. You wouldn't get 2 Sheik and Volkov promos in the same show. Like, you might get 3 Bobby Heenan promos, but it's a Bobby Heenan and Ken Patera promo. It's a Bobby Heenan and Big John Studd promo. And it's a Bobby Heenan alone promo. They were all different subject matters, right? And I think that's maybe where WWE was kind of serving the lunch to Jim Crockett at the time. And it wasn't until later where Jim Crockett's like, instead of having, like, Paul Jones come out and cut 3 promos this week, why don't we have, like, Jim Cornette do it? or Ric Flair do it, or have the episode of TV where like Flair comes out and cuts a promo, then 2 segments later Dusty cuts a promo, then 2 segments later Flair comes out and cuts the rebuttal to the Dusty promo, you know? So it like studio wrestling and what WWE was doing was very different, and I think the WWE stuff probably holds up better because of it. You know, the matches weren't great, but at least the promos were varied and different.
Yeah, I almost want to see an indie show that's just all promos now. I've been sitting here thinking about it while you're talking about wrestling before 1990, so I was zoning out. And like, you're allowed to do a couple pull-aparts, maybe even announce a match and have the competitors in the ring, but then somebody comes out and cuts a promo in the match, they just kind of forget about it. You can almost like call it like oops, all promos. Like, I think that would be a funny show. Like, you don't announce it ahead of time, but just every time there's almost a match, like a promo happens.
I'll run up the flagpole.
I think that would be a funny bit. Like, you almost get a match.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Thanks, Jayhawk.
All right, next call.
Hey, Joe and Adam, what's happening? It's your buddy Kenny from the Mystery Man. Just wanted to, for the record, formally apologize to Adam for suggesting that he watch Ashes. When that whole thing was going down, I have no problem. I can admit I was completely, quote, Chikara pilled at the time, and was completely along for the ride, hook, line, and sinker with the shutdown into the Wrestling Is shows. And then what turned out to be the big comeback into the start of what would be the Wrestle Factory era. And I was totally on board for all that stuff. And I remember it through, I guess, blue tinted glasses, and probably should have maybe not been super stoked to have everybody sit down and watch what was essentially a bunch of YouTube clips with a couple things in between. So anyway, sorry, fellas. Talk to you soon.
It's all right, Kenny. I don't hold you responsible. If anything, I blame Joe. And I'll just say that while I didn't entirely enjoy it, I appreciate the fact that I saw it. You know, like I feel like I had to see it eventually for my Chikara knowledge history type deal.
Yeah, there's no way to get the full 2013-2014 Chikara experience in 2022, but I got to give it to you as close as we possibly can.
Yeah, no selective history here. This isn't public school.
Right. All right. Last call-ish. Pink button time. It's Ed.
Yay.
Hey, Joe and Adam. It's Ed. Joe, I just wanted to say sorry to you and to your dear sweet Brucey.
Oh, thank you.
That Dave Meltzer is a fucking liar, dude. He's just a lying motherfucker, and I fucking hate him. Hate his guts. Hate his dumb fucking face. I hate his messy fucking room. Brian Alvarez is still cool, but Dave sucks. Still perpetuating that lie and doubling down that CM Punk got Colt Cabana moved down to ROH. Bullshit. Punk says it's gonna happen, so I think that's the end of it. Punk and TK, very trustworthy. I trust them. That shit never took place. Bullshit. Hate them. Very upset about this. No wonder CM Punk hates this business. You have jokes like Dave Meltzer spreading lies about you. Plus, Colt Cabana was mean to me that one time. I don't fucking like him. Okay, bye.
I'm with Ed in regards to Colt, even though he and I have squashed our beef. I don't like the fact that he was mean to Ed that one time. If he sends Ed back his $10 that he fleeced him for, then maybe we'll get over it. You know?
Yeah. Just related but unrelated, 10 hours ago, there was a tweet from @PodVanDam that said new episode out. And it's now 10 hours later, and I'm refreshing my feed. I still don't see it.
Well, that's because you don't know how... listen, I fucking listened to the goddamn show at 12:07 today, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know. I mean, I might use an actual proper podcatcher, and I don't have it. So,
well, that sounds like a you problem, not a me problem. That sounds like I know how the fucking internet works. But yeah, so Ed is right. Dave Meltzer does kind of suck. I will have to correct him though. The room is cleaned up now because the fact that they have Dave on camera, he can't live in they can't videotape him in the pigsty that he is, and you can't be the preeminent wrestling journalist when you were sitting on this story for months and didn't say anything about it until they did an angle about it on TV. Like, how did I know what's going on with the Colt and Punk stuff behind the scenes? And I said it on the podcast multiple times, and Dave Meltzer allegedly knew. And then I saw somebody else say this, you could be mad at Punk for many reasons. And again, listen, he's a piece of shit. But like, if you're gonna be mad at anyone, it's like Tony Khan. It's not like well, I got Colt on a format sheet here, and he's gonna go out for his match, and Punk tackled him and didn't let him come out for the match. Or Punk was like clandestinely like canceling his flight reservation so he couldn't make it to the show. Like, Tony was the one making those decisions, thinking he was making Punk happy, you know? Anyway.
I don't have a strong opinion on this, but I mean, if you have to choose between, if you're a business owner, you're a guy trying to make the best possible television show, and you have to decide, do I want CM Punk or do I want Colt Cabana? I think you take CM Punk 10 out of 10 times, and Colt Cabana doesn't do anything for me. So we talked about this last week. If you had to choose between the Elite and CM Punk, that's a harder decision. But Colt and CM Punk, I know you've turned on them earlier in the show, but I'm still taking CM Punk. And yay, Colt Cabana's back on television. Woohoo!
I still think Punk is a fascinating character to be on TV. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the way Meltzer handled it was very unprofessional for someone who's supposed to be an actual journalist, you know?
Yeah. But, we're going to get the Big Apple move, where he throws his butt at somebody. It's funny. Yay, boom, boom, Colt Cabana. Ugh, go sell $1,000 micro brawler prototypes.
Collectively, they were sold for $1,000.
Yeah.
All right, so Ed called back.
Ed called back? That's not allowed.
Hey, Johnny Adam, it's Ed again. I was so angry I forgot why I called. So the episode of Raw you're talking about today, I tell you, one of my favorite Raw segments ever is Kane beating the shit out of Ahmed Johnson. Kane was so fucking cool back then, when he was just played a monster and wasn't one in real life. Glenn's a fucking moron, huh? What a stupid man. But I'm super into Kane at this time, man. I think this is one of my favorite Kane moments. It's so dope. Kane just beating the shit out of jobbers because the Undertaker won't fight him. It's great shit. I remember being 9th grade and drawing a picture of Kane, right? And wrestling, it's end of '97, hasn't quite hit huge yet, right? So this kid thought this was just an original character I drew up, and I never corrected him. I just let him keep thinking that. Kids are stupid. But yeah, I just want to call and talk about this because I love this. This is forever etched in my mind, this entire segment of Kane beating the shit out of Ahmed Johnson. The Dude Love one, definitely better. But this is probably, I know, man. I really like when he beats up the DOA and the Headbangers at the same time, but that's later. You haven't gotten there yet. Ooh, man, this is the best year of Kane for sure. 1997 Kane's just the best. Lots of red. Perfect red. Perfect red. Okay, bye.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to take Ed's word for it. I don't remember being excited about that angle or that segment. It's the same as I don't remember ever enjoying a Colt Cabana segment. It's the same thing. It's just all fussy.
Wow. So I'm not going to say I was a big Kane fan, but I definitely was an Undertaker fan, even during this era. And, they had it set up that Undertaker's I'm not going to fight my brother. And Kane's just well, until you fight me, I'm just going to beat everyone up, And when he beats up jobbers, that's one thing. But Ahmed was a top of the card guy. And, I mentioned it last week. And we didn't get too much into it this week. But there was supposed to be a Stone Cold versus Ahmed Johnson match on this episode of Raw. Ahmed comes out, and then instead of Stone Cold coming out, the Kane thing hits, right? Yeah. And fucking Kane comes out and kills Ahmed Johnson, and then Mankind comes out to try to stop Kane. And then they brawl to continue their program for the match leading up at Survivor Series, which, is a forgotten match because, that other thing that happens at Survivor Series 1997. But, like, fucking Foley, man, like, went for it during this feud. He talks about it a little bit on his podcast this week. He kind of gets into the minutia of, like, how to take a chokeslam to, like, for maximum minimal impact, maximum, like, show to make it look like you've been killed. And I don't know if I would trust Mick Foley to be the one to tell me that, but he still gets into it a little bit. And the other thing that I forgot of the lead up to this feud where, like, Kane beats up Dude Love and then Mankind comes out to defend Dude Love, and part of Mankind's promo is that he can't believe that Kane did that because Dude Love was just a kid. That in Mick Foley lore, canon, what have you, Dude Love was like a teenager, maybe? Like he was the Dude Love that was in the home movies come to life today, embodying the body of, at that time, 38-year-old Mick Foley. Or however the hell old Mick was at the time. Yeah. No, not 38. He would have been 33 at the time. My apologies. So 33-year-old Mick Foley, when he was playing Dude Love, he was playing a teenager, and Mankind was the only one that acknowledged it on TV.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I tell you what, that Mick Foley, that's a guy you want to see on television. He's like the anti-Colt Cabana.
Well, you really don't like Colt Cabana.
I've been stewing here. Like, I'm thinking about it. Like, I'm on Team Phil. Since you completely abandoned him, I'm like, oh, man. Does the fact that we're never going to see CM Punk on AEW again mean that they're just going to ram Colt Cabana down my throat? Because if so, I'm not going to be happy about it.
No, between me and you, this is probably the one-off for Colt Cabana.
Oh, good. Like, go and, like, do your Ring of Honor show and put it on the internet, and then I don't have to watch it.
Yeah.
Well, I might watch it because I like other people, but put Colt Cabana on Ring of Honor Elevation. Then I'll definitely never have to see it.
Listen, whatever you say about Colt, whatever you say about Punk, we don't need any of them. You know why? You know what we have instead?
What?
All right, I'm not going to play the whole thing this time. Double J. That's all we need. Oh, imagine when Double J is the fucking Ring of Honor champion. Anyway. All right. So, hey, thanks to everyone who called in. Again, of course, you can help out the show. Sign up for Jerry's Internet Wrestling Emporium. I don't think they have promo codes for FITE Plus. With the promo code @odds, new subscriber, you don't get anything free, but it lets Jerry know that you came to him from us. There's no T-Public sale this week, but if I remember correctly from last year, once we hit like Black Friday time, it's like pretty much every weekend from the rest of November and all of December, it's 35% off. So, maybe they're like easing up on the beginning of the month to hit to the end of the month. Anyway, you could always buy some stuff over at our T-Public store. You could also make any and all of your purchases through our Amazon affiliate link, which is in the show notes to every single one of these episodes, no matter how it is that you get your episodes. Does not cost you anything extra. Amazon call it an advertising fee. I call it the thing that makes Adam happy at the end of the month when he gets his cut of the fucking money.
Yeah.
Some of the notable purchases through the Amazon click-through this past week include a Star Wars Funko Pop Book of Boba Fett's Mandalorian with pouch Funko Pop.
Ooh, how many pouches? Is it like a Rob Liefeld amount of pouches?
No, I think it's just one pouch, maybe.
Oh, it's not enough pouches.
And somebody also purchased the Blu-ray of the Doctor Who Eve of the Daleks and Legends of the Sea Devils.
Oh, well, you're a bit of a Who fan. Did you enjoy those episodes, or do you remember?
I think I watched the Sea Devils one.
Mm-hmm.
All the Daleks stuff. Like, I don't know the name, like, the titles. I'm like, oh, this one where Daleks is in the title, that's where the Daleks did this. If you tell me what the Daleks did in that episode, I might remember what the Eve of the Daleks episode is,
Well, I'm sure there's not a lot of Daleks episodes, so they probably
No.
put it together. You know?
No. Again, I Todd, as part of Longbox Heroes, when we watch the TV, he's a huge Doctor Who fan, so we do watch Doctor Who there. Until Eric Roberts comes back, it's not the real Doctor Who as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. Well, Joe, I am not going to recommend to anybody that they listen to The Art of Wrestling, but I will tell them to listen to these other podcasts, such as Longbox Heroes After Dark, Final Wrestling Place, We Need Wrestling, which is featuring Wings on Wings Michelle this week.
Yes.
News, Hit My Music, Porch Talk, Viewer's Choice, WWE War, Wrestling Cheers, Indie Wrestling Guide, Pod Van Dam, The A Show, Between the Sheets, and If You Catch My Drift.
Now, I will say this, Adam, you are a little bit behind the 8 ball because it's not Art of Wrestling anymore. It's Wrestling Anonymous. And it was just a coincidence that Colt dropped his first new episode in 4 months, literally seconds after his match was done on TV.
Well, that's an opportunity.
Listen, his name was in the public. He's nothing if not a marketer, you know?
Yeah.
Y'all trying to be Double J, you ain't Double J. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for the main show, and now it's time for Adam's favorite part of the show, yes?
Let's do it.
Did I not put it in here?
Oh, damn it. Money, 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 money. Some might cost a little. Some might cost a lot. Near the $100 Vansky, your figures will be bought. Ha 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 ha. There you go. You don't have to put it in.
Oh, I don't?
Nah, that was good enough.
All right. I'll play it when we're done. I'll close out the show with it. How about that?
No, it's fine.
All right. I can't believe I forgot. So I only got one purchase. I'm sure you've got dozens and a story, right?
I've got a couple stories, but I'll do a boring one real quick and just say I pre-ordered what is allegedly a NECA.com exclusive Back to the Future accessory set, which is like a bunch of random accessories that go along with the Back to the Future figs that I collect. And aside from getting gouged on shipping, because it was like a $35 set with a $15 shipping cost.
I saw that. Oof.
Yeah, looking real forward to that. But as you know, NECA has an exceptional track record of always delivering things that people pre-order in a reasonable amount of time. I look forward to getting these sometime after the Zombie Sailor Jeff Jarrett figure comes out.
Right, I was going to say, when we're at 15 months plus on your NECA pre-order, let's talk, pal.
Yeah, exactly. But, yeah, that was just kind of something that I needed. Like, I didn't want it, but I'm like, I have every other NECA Back to the Future figure. I'm like, what, am I just going to not have this? So I have
Sure.
Yeah, that's crazy. What am I, freaking Todd? You know, Mr. Guy who's like, I don't need to haggle. I have money in my pocket. Yet suddenly he has a reason why he doesn't need every fig under the sun. Come on.
Listen, that Ghost Rider prototype you're trying to push on him. Todd ain't no prototype man. You ain't gonna sell him on that one, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's not a sophisticated collector. That's fine. He's a casual.
Oh, boy.
But what'd you get, Joe?
Okay. So again, it is approaching the holiday season. I have not bought anything, for my kid for Christmas yet, but we have a list, and we're probably going to start purchasing stuff after this weekend, and none of that stuff counts. But that's where all my money is going to be tied up in, you know? But I did buy something this week, again, not for me right now, but the Major Brothers toy drive started. And every year I always donate to it, whatever I can. You can go through Ringside, and they have a thing set up where if you put in the P.O. Box for Brian's School for Creative Pro, P.O. Box 33 something, Merrick, New York, P.O. Box 339, Merrick, New York 11566. You put that in as your shipping address, it automatically kicks through as free shipping use the promo code MAJOR for 10% off. And there's figures on there that you can get super cheap, and it goes to a good cause. It's getting a kid a wrestling figure for Christmas, you know?
Yeah, there's like basics for $2.50 and like elites for like $5 or $6.
Yeah. So I bought the Drew McIntyre Survivor Series 2020 Elite. That was $4.
Yeah.
The Edge WrestleMania 37 Elite, that was $5. The Bianca Belair Elite 81, that was $7. The Candice LeRae Elite 87, that was $7.
Yeah, and kids don't know how expensive or how rare a figure is.
Right. And it's one thing to get a basic, but I'm like, okay, I can get a basic for $4, or I could get an Elite for $4.50. I think that's a little bit cooler, a little bit bigger of a thing. And like I said, I do it every year. If you could afford it, I say do it. You know, helps out a good cause. If you don't have like a charity or a Salvation Army or whatever in your area, you know, it's a way to help out these guys, whatever your opinion of Broski is. Brian's a good guy. Marky's all right. And Tim Sterling's okay, too.
I will say at this point, like this is I believe the 5th toy drive.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. At this point, Ringside should just figure out to have an option at checkout where it's just like, hey, I want this stuff sent to the toy drive, instead of you having to, crack the code and type in the address of Creator Pro. It should just be an option at checkout. But that's notwithstanding. I will also say I was entertaining the idea of actually going to the toy drive, and then I saw that they booked Tyrus, and I'm like, yeah, I'll skip this. I'll just maybe do it through the website.
Yeah, I said the same thing too. There is. I will say though, this week's Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. Spoilers for that if you're a poor. There's 2 bits at the beginning where Brian Quick forces Broski to do basic math, and it goes exactly how you'd think it would go. And around the 42-43 minute mark, they do take a shot at how bad Zombie is at getting his figures out to people.
Yeah, well, I do like how they, I believe it was this week's episode or maybe last week's episode, where they just read off all of the Cella figures that were announced but have not yet been delivered.
That's this week's episode.
Okay. And it's like, oh man, can you believe a company would sign all this talent and not have figures in production yet? Like, as if Zombie doesn't have 40 people on roster yet,
Well, again, it is right before they go through that list. They just throw a slight thing at Zombie. They're like, oh, this is almost like Zombie levels of bad, like with the thing. But then, like, Broski pulls out a fucking binder and is showing, like, test shots of all these people who don't have figures yet,
Yeah. I think we've talked about it before. Enough of the retro stuff, but
the bubble's gonna burst soon, man.
Yeah, it'll burst as soon as everybody gets their Double J.
Well, and I was gonna say, with recent events, that Double J figure, I'm sure fucking Zombie's gonna find some extras laying around if he could flip them for double the price, because Jeff Jarrett yet again is the hottest act in professional wrestling.
Yeah, and this actually, that reminds me, speaking of like Jarrett and speaking of the majors, and I don't mean to bring this up in any kind of detrimental way, because I think it's actually smart business, but the Jarrett major bendies that were in that Conrad set, that like they couldn't give those away. Like they were basically doing it like, oh, buy a Ric Flair bendy and get a free Jeff Jarrett type deal.
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, as soon as the Jarrett news broke, obviously all the major social media stuff was promoting the Jarrett major bendies. So I clicked on it just to see if they raised the price, and they were looking for $35 each for the Jarretts. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's higher than it was, because I know they're just giving away the Conrad. Like the Conrad dropped to like $20 a bunch of times. So I went on like wayback.com, which is the thing that shows you archived websites. So I was like, okay, what was it yesterday? And yesterday the Jarrett bendies were 30. And then after the Jarrett re-debut on AEW, they went up to 35. I was like, all right, get your bag too,
It's the power and the influence of Double J. What can I tell you?
Yeah, rising tide raises all ships, right? Jarrett shows up, major bendies are more expensive. Do you have anything else, Joe?
Nope, that's it. That's all I got. That's all I purchased.
All right. So I have a couple purchases. I will say that every once in a while I would jump on Walmart's website, and one of my like bookmarked tabs or pages, if you will, was for the AEW Supreme Walmart exclusive Cody Rhodes figure. And last night, just on a whim, I happened to check the website, and it said it was in stock and ready to ship. So I added it to my cart, and I was able to successfully check out. And it said that it would arrive on Saturday. So I was like really pumped. I was like, oh, that was pretty easy. Free shipping. You know, I am a supreme completist. You know, I have all of them so far. And after I checked out, and this is late last night, after I checked out, I looked to see, I wonder if these are available at any stores. And my local Walmart didn't have any, but it actually said that the Pittston Walmart had them in stock. And you know how this is, like sometimes, you know, it says they have them in stock, but they're sitting in the back or inventory could be wrong. But I decided I'm going to, you know, tomorrow, meaning today, I'm going to just make a quick run to Pittston and see if I could grab one off a shelf, and then I can, you know, pick out a nice one, and then I'll just cancel the order I did online. Make sense?
Yes.
So I wake up today and, you know, I jump in the car and I'm like, all right, I'm going to, you know, run to Pittston. And Pittston for me is like maybe 15 minutes away. You know, you jump on 81.
Yeah.
And I jump on 81. I throw on the new episode of Longbox Heroes, and this is important for context, and get on 81 South, and I get near Dunmore. I know this is becoming real local. And all of a sudden hit a parking lot of traffic. So 81 is not moving. And I'm not talking about it's moving slow. It's basically you're parked. And it's like there's no exits anywhere close. And, Joe, I'm stuck on traffic on 81 on my way to stupid Pittston Walmart. I listened to the entire episode of Longbox Heroes. Now, keep in mind, this is about a mile of traffic. I listened to the entire episode of Longbox Heroes and half of Previewing the Past before I was able to get off at the Central Scranton Expressway and get out of traffic.
Previewing the Past Patreon show, patreon.com/Longbox Heroes. Those are long. Those are like 2 + 3 hours almost.
Yeah, I was on that one little, like I said, it was probably about a mile and a half, 2 miles of traffic, probably close to 2 hours. Like 2.5 hours.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I had to go to the bathroom really bad. Like I was debating like jumping out of the car. I was like, can I get arrested? I mean, this is cruel and unusual punishment. Like if I run over to the woods there, like obviously my car's not going anywhere because we haven't moved in like 15 minutes. I was like, oh God, a cop should let me get away with this, right? But anyways, it was a miserable experience. Plus I realized when I was leaving my house, I was like 5 minutes away from my house. I was like, oh, man, I forgot to put my contacts in. It's okay. I'm going to be there and back in like 45 minutes. It's not a big deal. But no, fast forward like 3 hours later on the round trip, I'm like, I'm getting a headache from squinting because I can see well enough, but it like hurts. It was a miserable fucking trip. But I got to the Pittston Walmart and they did have the Codys there. And so I bought one and then I canceled my order online. So yeah.
There you go.
But that was my miserable fucking trip to the Pittston Walmart. Don't recommend it.
All right.
But my last purchase, Joe, as we mentioned before, I tried to enable Todd to buy a Jonah Hex prototype figure.
Are you sure it's a Jonah Hex? I thought it was a Ghost Rider.
Well, the listing says Ghost Rider, but it's actually a Jonah Hex figure.
Huh.
But
that seems trustworthy. I would give that person my money.
Well, again, if you don't know how to do the research and look into what you're purchasing, I guess that's fine. But, you know, many a time professional figure buyers will capitalize on somebody mislabeling their item that they have for sale. I'm sure Fig Daddy Cool would probably tell you that if he was, you know, a real fig collector. But anyways. Anyways, Joe, speaking of being a professional fig collector, one of the things that you do, obviously, is you use eBay save searches, correct?
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to cast a pretty wide net in order to get some elusive things. And if you remember, probably like 6 months ago, I had purchased my first Azrael prototype. and it was like one of those Kenner figures, like the Legends of Batman figures.
Yeah.
It was like that all red figure, and it was all right. It was a cool test shot. Like, it was my first ever Azrael test shot. It was something that I can go and say, hey, I'm the Michael Jordan of Azrael figure collecting, because unlike some dude in a major Facebook group that just has a shelf full of dusty Lucy's, I actually have a nice Azrael figure collection, full of mint on card stuff, and I'm not missing anything. And hey, I got this prototype, so it's cool. But I decided, I was like, I should probably set a bunch of eBay save searches to see if any more pop up on eBay. So, I type in like Azrael test shot, Azrael prototype, Nightfall, blah, 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 Night Quest, Night's End. I'm like, let me get all of the things. So just in case something gets posted. And 6 months later, we go 6 months, there's been nothing. I checked my eBay save search, though, a couple nights ago. And Joe, I found something. Something came off on the list. And I'm going to actually grab my phone. And I found an Azrael test shot. And it is quite possibly one of the nicest test shots I've ever seen. Because unlike the previous test shot that I had that was very incomplete because it was missing a lot of the accessories, this is a figure that is kind of like all one piece. So it's not missing anything. And it'll make sense when you see the pictures. But this is, and again, it's hard to just explain in an audio podcast, but you can see that it's all there. It's just not painted.
Let's say two different colors. It's red and black, and then it has like those yellow translucent bits on there.
Yeah. And I'm going to send you a picture next to the final version of it. But Joe, this popped up in my eBay save search, and it was buy it now, no best offer, but just buy it now with free shipping. All right. And obviously, knowing me, very few dollar amounts would have dissuaded me from buying this.
Right. Again, you're the Michael Jordan of Azrael figure or Azrael collecting, period.
Yes. Joe, do you want to take a guess of what this costs? Buy it now.
So I'm going to guess mislabeling stuff. Maybe
This one was properly labeled. This came up as like DC Superheroes Azrael prototype test shot. So it hit all the bells and whistles.
Right. I can only imagine you and two other guys are looking for this. I can't imagine there was a lot of demand for something like this. I'm going to say $50.
It was actually $30 shipped.
Woo!
Like that figure mint on card is like an $80 figure, So it's like the prototype / test shot. Like I said, unlike most test shots, it actually looks cool on the shelf. It doesn't look like, just this unpainted mess.
Right.
I was very happy to get that, Joe. Because obviously. Prototypes, test shots, whatever, they don't show up every day, and when they do, you have to jump on them,
Right. Now, you didn't pull that net in just in case there's more out there, right?
Oh, no. I left that net up there, Joe. Because once I got that, I made that successful purchase. I made the tweet. I said I found something, that was like, Azrael related or whatever. And I made the tweet saying Michael Jordan, #Michael Jordan of Azrael figure collecting. A few minutes after that, I said to myself, maybe the net isn't wide enough, Joe. Because what do people accidentally refer to Azrael as all the time?
The worst Batman ever.
Well, you got one word right in there, and that was Batman.
Okay.
So I just searched Batman prototype. Batman test shot. And obviously, tons and tons and tons of stuff comes up. But Joe, if you look hard enough, you'll find an Azrael Batman in there. And I bought a second goddamn Azrael prototype this week. And I just sent it to you. And this one is an unpainted, more of a rougher looking one.
Sure.
This is also from the DC Superheroes line. But this is based on like the Night's End Batman, which is like the fully armored with like the Gatling guns and all that stuff, like the totally Spectroxed out Azrael. And this one came from China, unlike the other one that came from the US. But I did my research on it, looked it up and down. It passes my legit test. This one was a little bit more expensive than $30. But again, if you're the Michael Jordan of Azrael figure collecting, you can't let something silly like price get in the way. And this one isn't here yet, but it's on its way. It should be here in about a week.
So I guess the question I have is, how many Azrael prototypes are we up to now?
I currently have 3.
Okay. So, obviously the hope would be to get a prototype test shot, whatever, for each of the figures that you have.
That would obviously be the pie in the sky goal, yes.
Right. Is that even an option that could happen?
Conceivably, sure. At this point, I have 2 different prototypes from DC Direct, like back when DC used to make their own figures. So we know that those prototypes exist. I have a Kenner prototype. And here's the thing, if you say one for every figure, some of these molds have been repainted. So for example, that first one I sent you, the one where it's classic Azrael costume, that figure was released as a standalone and then had a slight repaint in a 2-pack.
Okay.
So technically that one prototype covers 2 different Azrael figures, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Do I need 2 different prototypes for those 2? Well, that's probably unrealistic.
Right, because 2 don't probably exist. Right.
Yeah. And I know there's a lot of McFarlane Multiverse Azrael figures that came over the last 3 years, and I know that there are McFarlane prototypes out there in test shots. So is it possible to get a test shot for every Azrael figure I have, or at least every mold? It's possible, and I'm going to look for it. And unless somebody goes and puts one up for sale for $1,000, where I'm not going to touch it. But if they're all I don't know, $300 or less, I'm going to buy every one of them I find.
Sure.
Because that's what I collect now. I've reached the physical end of actual available in stores figures for him. So it's I need to get more drastic. I'm like Jake the Snake in Beyond the Mat. One wasn't enough, and I had to have 2, and then 2 and a friend, and 2 with toys. I need to keep getting this collection more and more obscene.
So I say, again, I don't know what your situation is, but I say buy that Ghost Rider prototype for Todd as a Christmas gift and enable him that way.
Well, we did have a long discussion, and again, go listen to that episode of Porch Talk. I tried to explain to him, I was like, listen, how many Jonah Hex figures exist? And he's like, 3 or 4. And I'm like, all right, so there's not a ton of Jonah Hex figures out there. And I was like, would you say that this figure that this prototype went on to make is is it the best Jonah Hex figure or one of the best? He's like, it's probably one of the 2 best. I'm like, all right. And it's not like there's going to be a million Jonah Hex figures down the road. He's not exactly somebody marketable based on him wearing a Confederate outfit, So right. I was trying to explain to him, I was like, all right, listen, the rarity of this, the price of it, the fact that if you're going to be a completist of a character, why wouldn't you just want that? And he's like, well, it's a loose figure. I was like, yeah, but it's you collect original art. This is the original art in the fig world. I was trying to use that spin. And he's like, well, no, if anything, this is a rough sketch. I was like, okay, whatever. It's this thing that went on to create the final version, and I was trying to explain to him, that's what a prototype is to figures, just like original art is to comics. But I couldn't budge him. And then he was like, it's $120. I'm like, oh, mister, I don't haggle at a toy store. But I don't know. I think he should buy it because it's really cool, but I was unable to budge him.
I think you should buy it for him as a gift and enable him that way. But I'm with Todd on this one as someone who dabbles in doll collecting, like Todd does. He does not have a huge collection of dolls, and to get him a prototype for something that he probably doesn't display the same way that you do, probably in his mind, it's well, if I get this prototype. Then I need to get the figure if I don't already have it, and then I got to get a way to display the figure alongside the prototype. And I think it's more the too much work aspect for Todd. If I was him, you know,
I will say he does have that figure, and
right.
He was thinking about, when this came up in a previous discussion, he was thinking about buying a second of that figure to open and display.
Right.
So, like, right there, he's already thinking of having a loose figure displayed next to a mint on card figure somewhere. And, like, why wouldn't you want to display a prototype? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It's like he's speaking it. The whole concept of not wanting to buy a ridiculously expensive toy doesn't make any sense to me. You know, like, you regular people, you know.
Right.
But, maybe Fig Daddy Cool will buy it. I hear he's, like, a real big mover and shaker in the toy world.
Right. I think if you can convince Fig Daddy Cool to convince Todd, I think then you're on to something.
Yeah, that might do it. Yeah. But that's it for me, Joe. Just ho-hum, just like 2 one-of-one prototypes this week. No big deal.
That's all.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, everyone, thank you very much for listening this week. This was episode 214 of At Odds with Wrestling. I'm going to Rampage Friday.
Yeah, have fun. Be safe.
Yeah, shout out to the Scottie Pippen of Azrael Collecting for hooking me up with this.
Nice.
And ends up being like a good show on paper with that Orange Cassidy Shibata match.
Yeah, 2 of my all-time favorites.
Right, for sure. And you know, we're making the trip. Me, Brett, and DJ are going out. Brett, who's still incapacitated, loves Shibata so much. He's like, I'm going to take the pain to go see Shibata wrestle live in the United States.
Hell yeah. Have a good time, and get well, Brett, and everybody have a good time.
Yep, absolutely. So again, sorry.
I was going to say, do some fig hunting on your way.
We have time. I don't know how that's going to work out, though, you know?
Yeah.
But again, thanks everyone for listening. Be safe out there and enjoy some wrestling.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.